Sir, there is a danger on the Federal Highway of Ilorin-Jeba Road. The Federal Highway cut across certain villages, and unfortunately, in the design or whatever the Federal Highway cut across certain villages, intersection, and unfortunately, overhead pedestrian or overhead bridge along that side. And day in, day out, the villagers, the commuters on that road, every blessed day, there is an accident, which has cost a lot of lives and properties.
Distinguished colleagues, Senator Mustafa had actually hinted me on this issue last week. Is it the view of the Senate that he be allowed to proceed? Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. You may quickly proceed.
Thank you, sir. Senate President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to...
No, I just want to know whether you complied with the circulation of the copies of the motion.
Yes, the clerk is circulating it now.
Have you circulated a copy?
It's been circulated. The clerk is doing that, sir.
Okay, so continue.
Okay, sir.
They are circulating the copies now.
Sir, the Okolowo intersection on the Ilorin-Jeba Federal Highway in Ilorin South and West local government areas of Kwara State serves as a gateway for the movement of goods and people between the northern states and southwestern states of Nigeria. This intersection serves as a crucial link connecting Jeba, Mokwa, Abuja, Kogi State, Ogbomoso, Kishi, Saki, Oyo, Ibadan, Lagos State, Kayama, Barutin, and various towns in Kwara. That one is a different thing now. Don't instruct me now. Sir, to facilitate the movement of heavy-duty commercial vehicles engaged in regional and interstate commerce, making this road a pivotal hub for economic and social activities. Sir, our concern is that although the route is crucial, the Okolowo intersection lacks essential safety measures such as pedestrian overhead bridge, making it extremely hazardous for those crossing the highway. This deficiency has turned the intersection into a deadly trap for both pedestrians and motorists, resulting in frequent fatalities and property damage. Between November 2023 and January alone, over 50 lives have been lost in this spot, with the most tragic incident claiming 25 lives in a single event in November, sir. Sir, we are further concerned that these accidents have become a daily ordeal, leading to increased fatalities and property damage at the intersection. This is a dangerous trend which persists despite multiple attempts by the Kwara State government under the able Governor Abdurrahman Abdulrazak to address the issue with the Honorable Minister of Works. So far, these efforts have not resulted in any significant result to the crisis that is at hand. Sir, we are aware that construction of a pedestrian overhead bridge with a motorcycle ramp immediately will significantly reduce the risk of these accidents at this intersection. It will ensure that the safety of many pedestrians and motorcycles who use the intersection daily and facilities to smoothen the flow of traffic along this economical crucial corridor. Worried that the absence of an overhead pedestrian bridge that is critical, this critical intersection could result in more lives, if not preventable, from now. Like I said, sir, last week alone, from when I was to read this important motion, lives have been lost again over this weekend. So I will please urge accordingly that the Senate should resolve to urge the federal government through the Federal Ministry of Works to include the construction of the pedestrian bridge and motorcycle ramp as a part of the ongoing effort to rehabilitate the Ilorin-Jeba Federal Highway and urgently commence its immediate construction to prevent further loss of lives and ensure public safety. Mandate the Senate Committee on Works to liaise with the Federal Ministry of Works and other relevant agencies, including the Federal Road Safety Corps, to assess the current situation at the Okolowo intersection and report back to the Senate. Urge the federal government through the Federal Ministry of Works as a lasting solution to consider the construction of overhead flyover and include the same in the 2025 budget as part of the ongoing efforts to rehabilitate the Ilorin-Jeba Federal Highway. So with these few remarks of mine, I will want to submit that distinguished colleagues should please look at this issue so as to avert the further loss of lives and property in this particular intersection, so that the Senate can recommend the needful through the relevant agencies and ministry. Thank you, sir. I so submit.
Distinguished Senator Benson Koboe. Distinguished Senator Benson Koboe.
Your Excellency, distinguished Senator Komboe Friday Benson,
Yes, please speak out a little.
I hereby second the motion.
Yes, any contributor? The Deputy Leader of the Senate.
Yeah,
Senator
Your
Ashiru.
Excellency, Senate President, I'm Senator Ashiru, representing good people of Kwara South and Kwara State in general. Your Excellency, this is a Save Our Soul motion. And I think it's very, very important for us to save a lot of our citizens who are losing their lives and properties along the road. Your Excellency, this is a very straightforward motion, and I will just enjoy our colleagues to be sympathetic and support the motion in its total entity. The road is a federal government road, and that is an important road linking the people of southern states with the north. And what happened really is that there is a design error in terms of the fact that the city grew beyond the limit that was anticipated. And I think as it's moved by the motion, we should all support it in its total entity. Thank you for allowing me to contribute.
Distinguished colleagues, I think this is very straightforward. It's a single request to construct a pedestrian bridge in order to save lives on the Oko-Olowo intersection on the Ilorin-Jeba Federal Highway. So we go straight into the prayers. Okay, brother. Prayer 1, urge the federal government through the Federal Ministry of Works to include the construction of the pedestrian bridge and motorcycle ramp as part of the ongoing efforts to rehabilitate the Ilorin-Jeba Federal Highway and urgently commence its immediate construction to prevent further loss of lives and ensure public safety. Those in support of prayer 1 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2, mandate the Senate Committee on Works to liaise with the Federal Ministry of Works and other relevant agencies, including the Federal Road Safety Corps, to assess the current situation at the Oko-Olowo intersection and report back to the Senate within the next 2 weeks. Those in support of prayer 2 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 3, urge the federal government through the Federal Ministry of Works as a lasting solution, consider the construction of an overhead flyover and include same in the 2025 budget as part of the ongoing efforts to rehabilitate the Lorraine-Jeba Federal Highway. Those in support of prayer 3 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Let me thank distinguished Senator Salim Mustafa for bringing this to the knowledge of the public, and I hope that the Federal Ministry of Works, when communicated with the resolutions of the Senate today, will immediately swing into action to avert further loss of lives. Because if there is nothing on the highway, the people have no other way than to attempt to cross the highway, and that has led to many loss of lives. May the souls of those who have died rest in peace. I hope the construction will bring this to an end. Thank you. Distinguished Senator Mongoro.
Distinguished senators, distinguished President of the Senate, distinguished senators, my name is Mohamed Tahir Monguno. I represent Borno North Senatorial District. Mr. President, distinguished senators, I am coming under Order 42, personal explanation. With the indulgence of the President of the Senate, I will read the order. The order reads thus: by the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, which leave I have already gotten, a senator may make a personal explanation, although there may be no question before the Senate. But no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor may debate arise upon the explanation. The terms of the proposed statement shall be submitted in detail to the President of the Senate when his leave to make it is sought. Mr. President, distinguished senators, I want to report an incident in my constituency last week whereby Boko Haram fighters, numbering about 200 of them, armed with sophisticated weapons, initially carted away from the Nigerian military. MRAF, gun trucks, all the sophisticated weapons attacked one of my local governments. And as a result of the gallantry, zeal, determination, and patriotism exhibited by the Nigerian military, they were able to not only repel the attack on that local government, they succeeded in neutralizing half of those Boko Haram that came fully armed, determined to take over that local government, and then seize most of the sophisticated weapons that they came along with to attack our soldiers. So because of this bravery, an act of gallantry that the military exhibited in the course of this attack, there is a need for the Senate to acknowledge this gallantry and also thank them for what they have done, because this will serve as a veritable tonic for them to do more. That is what I want to bring to the notice of the Senate, to commend them for the act of gallantry that they have done. Thank you.
But just as you were commending the military, I received correspondence from Mr. President on the for the confirmation of the new Chief of Army Staff. So your point of order is sustained. Now, I join you and the Senate to commend the gallantry of our soldiers and pray that God will keep them safe as they strive to keep Nigeria one and stop the insurgents who are trying to divide the country. Almighty Allah bless them and keep them while fighting for our cause. So let me just read the correspondence very quickly. Distinguished Senator Godswill Akpabio, GCON, President of the Senate, confirmation of appointment of Lieutenant General O.O. Oluide as Chief of Army Staff. In accordance with the provisions of Section 218, subsection 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, and Section 18, subsection 1 of the Armed Forces Act, I am pleased to forward for confirmation by the Senate the appointment of Lieutenant General Oluyede as the Chief of Army Staff of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Lieutenant General O.O. Oluyede has been serving diligently in an acting capacity since his appointment. He has displayed exceptional leadership, professionalism, and unwavering commitment to the security and continued stability of our nation and the progress of our armed forces. His qualifications, experience, and contributions to the Nigerian Army and the nation at large make him well suited for this important role. While I am confident that the Senate will consider and confirm the nominee expeditiously, please accept, distinguished Senate President and distinguished senators, the assurances of my highest consideration. Yours sincerely, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, President, Commander-in-Chief, Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So it's good that the new Chief of Army Staff in acting capacity is starting on a good note. So in line with our rules, this is referred to the Committee on the Army, Senate Committee on the Army, to screen and then present the report to the Committee of the Whole for consideration and further action as soon as practicable. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the first business of the day is the presentation of a House bill standing in my name on the Federal Universities of Agriculture Act Amendment Bill. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal University of Agriculture Act Amendment, HB 530, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Federal Universities of Agriculture Act Amendment Bill 2024, HB 530. First reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the second business of the day is also the presentation of a House bill standing in my name on the Sexual Harassment of Students Prevention and Prohibition Bill 2024 HB 1598. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Sexual Harassment of Students Prevention and Prohibition Bill 2024 HB 1598, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Sexual Harassment of Students Prevention and Prohibition Bill 2024 HB 1598, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the third business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Adebule Idi Atoluranti on the Child Rights Act Amendment Bill 2024 SB 652. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Child Rights Act Amendment Bill 2024 HB 652, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Child Rights Act Amendment Bill 2024 HB SB 652. First reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the fourth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Daniel Olugbenga on the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 Alteration Bill 2024 SB 654. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 Alteration Bill 2024 SB 654, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 Amendment Alteration Bill 2024 SB 654, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Sleep is still okay. It's not an intentional error.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the fifth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Hussaini Babangida Uba on the Commercial Vehicle Safety Regulation Bill 2024 SB 655. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Commercial Vehicle Safety Regulation Bill 2024 XB 655, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Commercial Vehicle Safety Regulation Bill 2024 SB 655, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the sixth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Oyewumi Kamorudin Olalere on the National Trauma Center, Ikire, Osun State Establishment Bill 2024 SB 656. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, National Trauma Center Ikire, Osun State Establishment Bill 2024 SB 656, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, National Trauma Center Ikire in Osun State Establishment Bill 2024, SB 656, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the first order of the day is a motion standing in my name on the urgent need to correct the slip regarding the removal from office of the chairman of the Code of Conduct Tribunal for misconduct. Mr. President, with your permission, I wish to move the motion.
Please proceed.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, motion on urgent need to correct the slip regarding the removal from office of the chairman of the Code of Conduct Tribunal for misconduct. The Senate notes a slip.
The Leader of the Senate.
Yes, sir.
Are you this urgent need to correct the slip? Slip is SLIP. Are you saying the mistake? The mistake. Use the word mistake. Let the public know it was a mistake. A slip is not a mistake. A slip is something that you do by the way. This one was a mistake.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. That's well guided. And I urge our colleagues to kindly please cancel the word slip and deem the heading as being an urgent need to correct the mistake regarding the removal from office of the chairman of the Code of Conduct Tribunal for misconduct. The Senate notes a mistake in its earlier resolution adopted at its plenary sitting of Wednesday, 20th November 2024, regarding the removal from office of the chairman of the Code of Conduct Tribunal, Mr. Yakubu Danladi Umar, for misconduct. Senate also notes that it has become necessary for the Senate to adopt this motion to correct this mistake to prevent confusion in the future. And Senate recalls that upon its resolution, invoked Section 157 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, instead of paragraph 17, sub 3 of Part 1 of the 5th Schedule to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as altered, as the basis for the removal from office of the chairman of the Code of Conduct Tribunal, Mr. Yakubu Danladi Umar. Senate affirms that the Senate stands by its resolution to remove the chairman of the Code of Conduct Tribunal on the grounds of misconduct as debated by the Senate through Resolution S/RES/2/36/24, dated Wednesday, 20th November 2024, in accordance with paragraph 17, sub 3 of part 1 to the 5th schedule to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as altered, and relying on Order 1B and 52.3 of the Senate Standing Orders 2023 as amended, Senate accordingly resolves to 1. Invoke the appropriate constitutional provisions as enshrined under paragraph 17.3 of Part 1 of the 5th schedule to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as altered, and Section 22, sub 3 of the Code of Conduct Bureau and Tribunal Act, Cap C-15, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, as the constitutional and statutory basis for its resolution S/RES/2/36/24, dated Wednesday, 20th November 2024, regarding the removal from office of Mr. Yakubu Danladi Umar as the Chairman, Code of Conduct Tribunal for misconduct. 2, to correct the mistake in its resolution S/RES/2/36/24, dated Wednesday, 20th November 2024, wherein Section 157(1) of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended, instead of the correct constitutional provision, which is paragraph 17.3, part 1 of the 5th schedule to the Constitution. And this resolution affects only the rescission, and this resolution affects only the correction of the wrong constitutional citation and does not in any way invalidate resolution S/RES/2/36/24 of Wednesday, 20th November 2024. 3, 6, Senate resolves to seek the concurrence of the House of Representatives to this resolution in accordance with paragraph 17.3 of part 1 in the 5th schedule to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 and section 22.3 Code of Conduct Bureau and Tribunal Act, Cap C-15, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, and 4, Senate resolves to urge the general public to disregard any misinformation or confusion regarding the mistake inherent in its resolution S/RES/2/36/24 of Wednesday, 20th November 2024, regarding the removal from office of Mr. Yakubu Danladi Umar as the Chairman, Code of Conduct Tribunal. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I so move.
Distinguished Senator Nweboye.
Your Excellency,
Somebody should second the motion.
Senator Peter Onyekachi Nwebanye is my name. I rise to second the motion, ably moved by the Leader of the Senate for urgent need to correct the mistake regarding the removal from office of the Chairman of Code of Conduct Tribunal for misconduct. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded. Those in support of this motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. But in spite of that, I would like us to go into clause by clause consideration, at least of the prayers. Why I'm mentioning this is for clarity. And I want to thank you for your humility as the leader of the Senate, and also thank the clerk of the Senate. The only group in the world, or the only person that cannot make mistake in the world, is God Almighty. Only God is above mistake. So this earlier referred section was talking about the removal of the chairman of the Code of Conduct Bureau, not Code of Conduct Tribunal, but it does not invalidate our decision. The Parliament, when I was a young lawyer and I was being taught in the Nigerian law school when it was only one law school, they even said that the Parliament can turn a man into a woman and a woman into a man. When the Parliament takes a decision, it must be respected. The Parliament makes the law. The judiciary interprets the law. But we are the ones that guide as far as legal matters are concerned. So if nobody should take the resolution of the Parliament for granted. And so this correction of the section does not in any way invalidate what the Parliament had done. We stand by what we did. That's why I put that question. So those in support of prayer one say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in support of prayer two say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in support of prayer three say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in support of prayer four say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Let me thank the leader of the Senate once again for his humility and for recognizing that he is not God and that anybody can make a slip. Actually, I can now use that word, slip. But for the purpose of the public, I wanted them to know that the particular section earlier quoted in that resolution was a mistake because of the aspect of Code of Conduct Tribunal, Code of Conduct Bureau, and all that. So the slip was also very relevant. It's just that I wanted it for clarity so that people will know that even the Parliament can make a mistake and correct itself. That's what we have done today. So the resolution removing the chairman of the Code of Conduct Tribunal from office remains valid by virtue of what we have done today. Those in support of the removal of the chairman of the Code of Conduct, as already indicated in our earlier resolution, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it, they are not here. So the man is still removed from office. In line with that resolution, we now seek the concurrence of the House of Representatives. Leader of the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues. The second order of the day is the second reading of the Shehu Idris Federal University of Health Sciences and Technology McAfee Establishment Bill 2024, SB 529. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read for the first time in this chamber on Wednesday, 17th July 2024. Mr. President, you may wish to invite most distinguished Senator Khalid Ibrahim Mustafa to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
Distinguished Senator Khalid Ibrahim Mustafa. Before you proceed, just a question. Is this a private university or a federal university?
It's not a private university.
Huh?
It's not a private university.
Is it a federal university?
No, we're trying to upgrade it to federal university now from state university.
No, is it a federal university or a private university?
No, it's not a private university.
Is it a federal university or a private university?
It's not a university as at now. It is not yet a university.
If it's not yet a university, it's not. Are you trying to establish it as a private university or as a federal university?
As a federal university.
Federal university, and
yes.
You start by naming it after an individual.
Already the name is there as a state-owned institution.
Can we step this down for further consultations? Those in support that we step it down for further consultations say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The reason is very simple. If you are trying to establish it as a federal university, you shouldn't come with the name of an individual. It's just a location. If it is in Sokoto, if it is in Kebbi, you use that location. If, in the opinion of the federal government, after it has been assented to by Mr. President, they decide to honor any individual in that state, they can now name the university after that individual. But if it's something that you are bringing to us, we will pass it as a tertiary institution. We will not start by naming it after an individual, because we need to know whether that individual discovered education or whether he won a Nobel Prize or something before we start by naming the.
I thought, Mr. President, I can just make a correction.
Distinguished, you have to understand that if it's a private university, you can give it any name. But if it's a federal institution, let the federal government, after it has established that institution, give it a name. Distinguished Senator Yaya, please, you've been in that institution for a long time. Can you give more light so that we guide future senators?
Well, your own position, Mr. President, cannot be faulted because ownership of the university is a public university. It's only the federal government that can give names to university or institutions that it owns. But people, maybe pressure groups can advise the federal government, but you cannot put it in an act. It's after the act has been validated by the National Assembly and assented to by the President, then the President in wisdom will respond to whatever claims other people have to naming the university. Thank you, Mr. President.
Well guided. Your explanation is sustained. Yes. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, your observation clearly, sir, is very valid. But for this purpose, sir, I just wanted to clarify so that it does not become a precedent. This institution is an existing institution. It's a public institution, already existing. And government had already named it as indicated.
The federal government named it?
Yes, sir. So what this bill, state government, what this bill
the federal government named it?
Sir, well, if what we are trying to say now is that it's the federal government that will have to rename it, okay, that's another thing. But I just wanted to clarify that.
He's not trying to establish it as a state institution. That was why I asked. I said, is it a federal university or a private university? If it's a private university...
He wants an upgrade. That's it.
If he wants an upgrade, then he has to use the name of where it is located. It is only the President of Nigeria or the Ministry of Education that can decide to name it after an individual. And that is only after it has been established as a federal institution. But if you are trying to give a law to the institution, which is a state institution, it is not here. It is in the State House of Assembly. It's the State House of Assembly that will pass the bill into a law signed by the governor. But if it's a federal university, we will handle that, and then the president will assent to it, and then it will become a federal institution. It is after it has become a federal institution
that the federal government
can go ahead.
Naming ceremony.
Yes, of course, the state government can make an appeal to the federal government that, oh, we already had a name for it. That name should be sustained, but not the Senate. The Senate cannot pass a federal institution with a name named by the state governor, and then we impose it on the federal government. I hope you are guided.
That is well explained, sir. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead. Yes. Yes, Senator Oshimole.
Mr. President, I agree entirely with what you have said, but just to draw our attention that I think if you go through our record, if this is a mistake, we have committed that mistake before. This Senate passed David Umahi University.
No, we have not. We did not.
We didn't?
We did not. You were not here.
I'm in the 10th Senate, sir. Okay. No, I'm happy if he wasn't there. Because I thought it was wrong, but I didn't want to say anything.
Were you here?
Yes, I'm meditating it, sir.
No, you were not here.
But I'm meditating it, sir.
Everywhere you were here. What
But I'm
happened?
happy that it was not done like that. But
It was
there was a bill like that before us.
No, it was stepped down by the Senate.
Ah, okay.
That we cannot pass
Very well, sir. Very well, sir.
a federal institution with a name.
Very well, sir.
Thank you. Leader of the Senate. Next item.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the third order of the day is the second reading of the Cassava flour mandatory inclusion into flour production bill 2024 SB 254. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read for the first time in this chamber on Wednesday, 8 November 2023. Mr. President, you may wish to invite most distinguished Senator Saliu Mustafa to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
this, yes, distinguished Senator Salih Mustafa.
Your Excellency, the Senate President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Salih Mustafa, representing Kwara Central. Your Excellency, the Senate President, I rise to read the lead debate on cassava flour, mandatory in our flour production, Bill 2023 SB 254. Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues, the bill on cassava flour, which was read the first time in this hallowed chamber on Wednesday, the 8th of November, 2023. The bill seeks to provide a legal and regulatory framework for the mandatory inclusion of high-quality cassava flour in our edible wheat flour production and its derivatives. Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues, Nigeria, being the world's largest producer of cassava, has an annual output of over 63 million metric tons as of 2021, which represents 1/3 of the total output for Africa. Nigeria can take advantage of this high demand of cassava in both domestic and industrial use, locally and in international markets, which is also now used for new energy. Over the past years, successive governments since the return to democratic rule has attempted to put in place policies and legislation to encourage the inclusion of cassava in edible flour, realizing its immense benefit and cost saving to the nation. The use of cassava in wheat can significantly reduce the cost of importation of wheat, which presently stands at over $3 billion per annum. The prolonged war between Russia and Ukraine had further increased the cost of wheat globally, thereby necessitating the need to seek alternative ways to reduce the cost of wheat and all its derivatives, especially bread, which is a major staple food for the masses in Nigeria. The continued importation of wheat has negative impacts on the Nigerian economy, causing trade imbalance, loss of foreign exchange, and fueling food dependency. The bill, Your Excellency, if passed into law, will stimulate jobs creation in the agricultural sector and increase our market share of cassava earnings in foreign exchange. Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues, I would like to draw this hallowed chamber to some of the objectives that this bill includes. 1. Mandatory inclusion of 20% high-quality cassava flour in wheat by all producers for edible flour in Nigeria or imported into the country. 2. Encourage cassava farming and create a sustainable market for cassava flour. 3. Mandate the publication of regulations for the proportion of cassava flour in relation to wheat to be applied in processes of making edible flour. 4. Provide a tax regime and incentive for producers of mixed wheat and cassava flour and wheat importers who include cassava flour in imported wheat. Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues, in conclusion, in increasing demand for cassava-based produce, both in domestic and international markets, creates prospects for our market expansion and value addition. The passage of this bill will enhance the efficiency of cassava production and processing operations, as cassava is a choice for crop for the rural development, poverty alleviation, economic growth, and ultimately food security. It will further promote technology innovation and improve access to finance and market linkages that can stimulate the growth of cassava processing industry and create avenues for entrepreneurship and employment of women and youth. Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues, I will appeal to this Halo chamber that it will also reduce the country's food import bill, enhance the utilization of local crops, create opportunities for businesses and employment, and genuinely boost rural development. The passage of this bill is also in alignment with the 20% cassava for flour inclusion policy initiated in June 2021 by the then Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, now renamed as the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues, I would want this Halo chamber to look at cassava as a staple food and as a means of adding more varieties and reducing the cost of wheat flour, which is majorly being imported into the country. I hope with these few remarks of mine, this Halo chamber will consider this bill. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Distinguished Senator Monguno.
Distinguished President of the Senate, distinguished senators, my name is Mohamed Tahir Monguno. I represent Borno North Senatorial District. I can vividly recall, as chairman of the Agri Committee in the House, when the then Minister of Agriculture, Mr. Adjournment, who is now the chairman of the African Development Bank, came up with this
Managing Director
of African Development Bank, came up with this policy of cassava inclusion in our bread. And the main thrust of this policy, Nigeria being one of the largest producers of cassava, most of our cassava lie west, and because of that, in order to encourage cassava farmers, a mandatory provision or policy was made to the effect that bakers will include certain percentage of cassava while baking their bread in order to carry along cassava farmers and not to allow cassava to waste, because this will go a long way in creating more employment and then generating much needed revenue to the coffers of government. And that is the main thrust behind that policy. Of course, the advantages, the about $3 billion United States dollars per annum and what have you, it's already been listed in the brief of argument submitted by the sponsor of the bill. So I think this bill is apt and germane, and I urge my colleagues to support the second reading of this bill.
The Senate President Emeritus.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues. My name is Ahmed Lawan. I represent Yobe North Senatorial District. Mr. President, I have two perspectives for this debate. One, if we don't have good and favorable soil and climate that will support production of wheat in Nigeria, then going for cassava, 10% of cassava in bread, is a very good policy. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, if, however, we can produce wheat in Nigeria we can, in that respect, have the whole of the wheat that we need to produce our bread in Nigeria. And there will be no need to compel producers of bread to put it in the bread that they want 100% wheat. But however, they can add 10%, 20%, but not based on law. Mr. President, in 1985, the then military government of General Badamasu Babangida, Ibrahim Badamasu Babangida, introduced what it called Task Force on Wheat Production. From Kirinoa in Borno State down to Sokoto, farmers went into wheat production. They could not even harvest because it was too much and there was no prepared market. And in fact, someone told us then that the Western powers didn't like it because we were supposed to be importing from the West. And therefore, that program didn't last long. Mr. President, in 2003, 2004, I was chairman House Committee on Agriculture in the House of Reps. The president then, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, GCFR, introduced what he then called 10% of cassava flour in bread. And a delegation was set up, led by the then PDP chairman, Chiwadu Ogbe. I represented the House on that committee and some few governors, and we visited 6 or 7 countries where cassava is produced, where it is processed and what it is processed for, where it is marketed and sold. At the end of the day, Mr. President, our farmers produce massive cassava. A full truck pickup of cassava was then selling for only 15,000 naira, and our farmers lost because there was no proper mechanism to absorb this, even though they were encouraged to produce. What I want to suggest here, Mr. President, is while we are promoting cassava to be included in bread, we should also look at the possibility of producing wheat itself. Because when you are saying substitute 10%, it's like you don't have enough wheat that you want to stop importing. But we can produce wheat. We can equally produce so many things from our cassava. And it's when our GDP is enhanced through these local productions, local processing, and local manufacturing and consumption and exports that our economy can be better. So I support the bill in one way, but also suggest that we shouldn't close our eyes to the fact that we can also produce wheat in Nigeria, that in fact we can export wheat to other countries. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you. Dismissed Senator Oshimole.
Thank you, Mr. President, sir, and my very distinguished colleagues. The last contribution by distinguished Senator Ranking Ahmed Lawal has also modified my thoughts on this issue. First, I believe that ultimately we must work towards self-sufficiency in food production. And we should, as much as possible, reorientate our consumption such that, as was said before, we eat what we produce and produce what we eat. I also submit to the general principle of the bill, which says that what rural people need is not our tears or sympathy. We just need to formulate appropriate microeconomic policies that will transfer prosperities to our rural people when we take agriculture as a serious business. But having listened to distinguished Senator Ahmed Lawal with regards to the fact that we can produce wheat, My question is, we talk about our potential. We can do all of this. Why are we not doing it? Because according to this document, even though no evidence was attached, it claimed that we are spending as much as $3 billion every year to import wheat. And so the inclusion of cassava will reduce the amount of wheat importation. But then Distinguished Senator Ahmed Lawa reminds us that importation is not inevitable if we get our policies right, provide the right incentive, and educate our farmers and give them what they need to go back to the farm and produce wheat. So between these two, I believe that they are all doable. Now, my problem is Senator Lawa said we shouldn't do it by law. Sometimes I don't like too many laws. Because we're forced there, you have to go to court. Persuasion seems effective, but in this environment, persuasion oftentimes doesn't work. So given that we can do both, encourage wheat production as they are suggested, and I'm 100% in support of that. Because I can just imagine if people in those parts of the country where wheat production is viable are encouraged and they have incentive and protection so to do, we will be dealing with poverty without giving them handout. On the other hand, those parts of the country as well, I'm sure, also do produce cassava. There is no part of Nigeria where cassava production is not viable. And so it is not to choose one against the other. Public policies should seek to promote both. Unfortunately, and it bears repeating, if the textile industry was flourishing and growing, they need a lot of cassava to produce starch, which you need for Siri to wear the kind of tapu he's wearing. So my conclusion, therefore, is whatever we can do to encourage and provide incentive, because if we just make the law will be lied there. At best, you send somebody to prison if there's a breach, but that may not translate to whatever. So let's encourage cassava production by adopting its recommendation. On the other hand, simultaneously, let's encourage the production of wheat. Because the foreign powers that adopt these things in our country, they will do everything possible. In some part of the country, they subsidize wheat. They even throw excess into the sea, just so that their farmers get ready market. That is how they achieve food sufficiency. But here, when our farmers overproduce, the price crash, then they move away. And 10 years later, we come back. Like you said, during the military, there have been huge debate about the need to reduce our dependence on imported wheat. So whatever we can do, and I'm not so sure now after listening to him, I think there must be some additional reflection we need to do as to how to couch this law such that we are not promoting one at the expense of the other, since both are viable in this country.
I thank you.
Good news, all over Nigeria, you can produce cassava. I'm not so sure whether wheat is available all over. But however, wherever it is, let's be seen to work to promote rural economy in all its ramifications. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, your submission has even confused you because you are neither here nor there. Yeah, on the one hand, you believe that policy can also promote inclusion of 10% of cassava. You also say, well, maybe not just policy, we can also make a law to include the 10%. However, that you also believe that, like the Senior Senator Ahmed Lawan pointed out, a task force once enabled Nigeria to produce enough wheat. I think what is lacking from his submission, what made it that policy to fail, was that we did not have a kind of policy that will enable us to buy from the farmers. If the federal government had absorbed everything the farmers produce, whether we throw it away or we share it free, you understand, like the foreign powers do, the farmers would have been encouraged to continue. But where they produce and then there was no market, and then the federal government did not buy from them, automatically they lost the incentive. So it's very clear that we have to promote both sides, like you said. So I share your opinion. I was watching you closely to see where you would tilt to at the end, but you remain in the middle. So, Deputy Senate President, add value to it.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Uh,
I think, well, I don't think clearly what this bill is talking about is try to deal with that situation that I always describe, that old habits die hard. This bill is all about our national interest. Let's utilize what we produce everywhere in this country. In the north, in the south, everywhere. Every state produces cassava. One of the crops you can find anywhere, everywhere. That we import wheat. And experts have studied and reached a conclusion that when you use certain amount of cassava added to it, it's good for us. Good for us to produce bread, and it serves the purpose that we want the bread to be, how we want bread to be, and that will reduce costs, and also it will allow us to utilize what we have. It's simple as that. And then you need legislation, because this thing has been said over and over again. But the bakers have refused to go in line with the study that experts have made about the bread we need to produce in this country. That create a legislation to enforce them to use this formula. Simple. Am I right? Very, very simple. It's in line with our national interest. Yes, we produce wheat, but not in all parts of the country. We produce wheat, we can cultivate wheat in the northern part of the country and some other areas, but not like cassava. Cassava is everywhere. It's in a national interest. Look, this is good for us. Very, very good for us. It will allows our farmers to now cultivate crops more, reduce the money we use importing wheat every year, and so it will help to conserve our foreign exchange. It's as simple as that. Mr. President, this bill is very simple. Let's support it in the interest of our nation. It's very simple. So, Mr. President, I so submit. Please support this bill. It will help our country. It will help our farmers. We can produce. It's something we produce everywhere. It's something we produce everywhere. You produce cassava here in Abuja. In Nasarawa, you produce cassava. In Kano, you produce cassava. In Borno, you produce cassava. Let's use what we have instead of using wheat all around 100%. We can now use 20%, add 20%, cut the cost of importing wheat, so that we now conserve foreign exchange. It's simple. Mr. President, let's support this bill. Please, my colleagues, support this bill for in line with our national interest. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Yaya.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I am Yahya Abdullahi, representing Cabinet. Mr. President, I rise to support this bill, but I also rise to adumbrate the points that have been raised by distinguished Senator Ahmed Lawan and distinguished Senator Adams Oshiomole. Mr. President, I spent the best part of my life as a teacher and researcher in the Institute of Agricultural Research, Ahmadu Bello University. And one of the greatest challenges that we have had since during the Shagari regime with the Operation Feed the Nation, which succeeded the Obasanjo's regime's agricultural policies at that time, was to try to make Nigeria self-sufficient in food. At that time, a lot of resources were spent in coming up with varieties of wheat and cassava, and the propagation of these varieties to all parts of the country. In fact, it is true, just like the Deputy Senate President has said, cassava can grow anywhere in this country, but we have excellent cultivars of cassava that have high yields. In fact, Nigeria is the largest producer of cassava in the world. So the issue really is not about 20%. I know that in the Institute for Agricultural Research, in the Agricultural Research and License Services Institute of that university, so many studies were made on the suitability of several cassava varieties in mixture made for the baking and production of so many commodities. In fact, at a point, the Obasanjo administration at that time, before the Shagari regime, even made it mandatory for the brewing industry to reduce their content of barley in favor of maize and guinea corn. And to a certain extent, this particular line has succeeded. Wheat, on the other hand, like Senator Ahmed Lawan has said, can be grown in this country, and Nigeria can be self-sufficient in wheat. What happened, like Mr. President, you have alluded to, was that we made a lot of campaigns to popularize farmers to grow wheat. Wheat seeds were distributed to so many farmers, but at the end of the day, after the farmers produce the wheat, the off-takers abandon them to their fate. So next time when they do it, farmers generally would do from wheat cultivation. So why this, Mr. President? What had happened was that there was a very strong, well-heeled lobby in the Nigerian flour producing industry. Now, unless I agree that we can go by the way of legislation, but also the issue is policy implementation discipline. That's what we lack. We lack policy implementation discipline, particularly in our agricultural sector. So unless this policy implementation discipline is sustained, even if we make the law, those very powerful lobbies are likely going to treat the law in the reverse. Just like you have said, Mr. President, we have encouraged farmers. I, in particular, we traveled to Lake Chad Research Institute, Gamburu in Gala, by road, over 1,000 kilometers from Zaria to that place, to encourage the wheat farmers to produce, even to produce the good variety that we give them for distribution. At the end of the day, everything will be fine, excellent, fine wheat fields in the Sokoto River Basin Development Authority area, which is now Kebbi, Sokoto, Zamfara, Yauri, right down to Para. In the Gamburu Ngala, in that is northeastern around the Lake Chad shores, we have been producing a lot of wheat. And the cultivars are good. A lot of research went into producing those varieties of wheat that are tolerant to the climatical conditions of different sections and different sectors of Nigeria. But at the end of the day, because of the powerful lobby of the flour producing industry, we found ourselves where we are today. So the issue really is, I agree with that we have to do some legislation. But the most important thing in this area, Mr. President, is policy implementation discipline. And this is what is required in the agricultural sector. You cannot do extension work, breeding. This is a very expensive research work, and you have good cultivars, and then at the end of the day, you distribute a lot of these things, and at the end of the day, the farmers who are supposed to realize value, who you have gone to great lengths to mobilize to produce these crops, find themselves at the back end of the market. So, Mr. President, as much as I support this particular bill, I think we as legislators and you as one of the most important policymakers, I think should encourage the Ministry of Agriculture and the President, draw the attention of the President, that in the area of agricultural production and agricultural utilization, so that we can reduce costs associated with imports of agricultural raw materials, we need policy discipline, and we need the President and the National Assembly to put their feet down to ensure that what we encourage and we spend national resources on are not thwarted by the power and persuasive capacity of the lobbies that are associated with importation of these products. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. So sometimes the policies are thwarted by the power of the lobbyists who are benefiting and profit sharing from importation of the products. But like I said, whatever we do, we must have a way where the federal government can become the off-taker. Let the farmers produce, whether cassava, whether wheat, and then we buy bulk from them. Even if it means in periods of scarcity, we release free to the consumers, to Nigerians. They need the food anyway. And so that it will encourage farmers to produce. So if they do so, then there may not be any need for any mandatory law. But at the same time, it's also good to have the mix so that we don't run into a situation whereby, for instance, I think it was Ukraine that was producing a lot of the wheat, almost 1/3 of the wheat of the world. When they went into the war, the price of bread all over skyrocketed because of the war with Russia. So Nigeria should also come back with that task force to task our farmers to produce. But this time, we should have a policy where we can buy from them if there is excess, so that it will encourage them. Because if they produce and then they end up losing, then the incentive will not be there. Distinguished Senator Ome and Senator Nengi, if there is anything you want to add, just one more minute so that we go into other items.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Victor Ume. I represent Anambra Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, I have listened very attentively to the debate on this bill, and I wholeheartedly associate myself with the intention of the sponsor of the bill to ensure that we include cassava flour production in our flour production activities in Nigeria, to be able to curtail the heavy reliance on wheat for making bread and things like that. It's a very noble observation he made, but my worry is about who the bill is, the law will be targeted to. Who is the law directed at? Mandatory mandatory inclusion of cassava flour in our production. Are we directing the law to the cassava producer or to those who are involved in the flour business? Because cassava production is a business. And if we want to ensure that we increase investment in cassava flour production, in business, I don't think it is law that you use to compel somebody to take advantage of the viability of a business. The cassava producer should be the one who will be desperate to produce cassava flour. If we pass this law, for example, my question will be, who is it directed at for enforcement? Because this thing we are doing is something I believe verily that will be promoted and supported through policy, government policy towards encouraging people to go into cassava flour production as a template to reduce total reliance on wheat for production of bread and allied things. So I know that from the proponents of the speeches already made, People are saying we support. I don't want to oppose my friend who is sponsoring this bill, but we have to look at the person this law is directed at. Mandatory inclusion. If we pass a law, say that cassava flour must be included in flour production, who will implement it? Somebody who is doing business will go into a business that is profitable. And unless we encourage through the government policies, make this cassava flour processing very attractive through various means, we'll be able to get at the target we are going to.
Thank you.
I just want to make an observation.
Thank you, but let me hear.
Who the law is being addressed, who is being directed at.
Okay, let me hear 1 minute from Senator Ninge.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Abdul Ningi, and I represent Bauchi Central of Bauchi State. Mr. President, this is a bill about cassava, and therefore, in the argument being debated, you look at the merits of why this bill is necessary and why this bill is important. And I have listened attentively to the Deputy Senate President, and I think he has captured the essence of this bill. First and foremost, the argument about wheat, much as it is important, but it is also imperative for people to be aware that we import wheat. And it is the importation of wheat that has taken a lot of our income. The bottom line and the question, do we also import cassava? The argument is no. Do we grow cassava in Nigeria? The argument is yes. 36 states out of 36 states, including FCT, grows cassava. And therefore, cassava is like an inheritance to Nigeria. It is something that is grown here, and it is something that must be encouraged. First thing first, do we have availability of cassava to be able to take the place of wheat? The answer is no. And why don't we have the availability of cassava? Because there are no laid down regulations that will encourage the production of cassava. This is what this bill is about. And to further buttress the argument that this bill is all-encompassing, look at objectives of the bill, particularly number 4, provide a tax regime and incentives for producers of mixed wheat and cassava flours and wheat importers who include cassava flour in imported wheat. So the issue of wheat has been clearly taken care of. But what is important is like what the Deputy Senate, the former Senate President said. What do we do as a country in order for us, once this bill passes through, to be able to take advantage and give the derivables for an average Nigerian to benefit from it? This bill, Mr. President, is apt, is timely, and it is important for people to recognize that cassava, once we pay attention to it, will now plug the gap of the revenues, of the hard-earned revenues that we use to import wheat. So when you bring the argument of including wheat, I think you are begging the question. But this bill is about cassava. And because cassava is inherent, we are the largest producers of cassava in Africa and even in the world. So we must take advantage about getting cassava availability to Nigerians, to add value to the flour, to the bread making mechanisms. So I think it is important to separate these things. And at the end of the day, you take it to the public hearing. Most of the arguments I have had today are arguments that will be heard during the public hearing. So therefore, a bill at the second reading is about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think this bill has merit enough argument to have it pass through this second reading. And I so support that this bill should pass through second reading. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished colleagues. Those who support that this bill be now read a second time, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Sorry. Mr. President, distinguished senators, I bill for an act to provide for the inclusion of cassava in flour and its derivatives and for other matters connected there with 2024 SB 254 second reading.
A bill for an act to provide the inclusion of cassava in flour and its derivatives and for other matters connected there with 2024 second reading taken. This bill is now referred to the Committee on Agriculture, Agricultural Production Services and Rural Development to report back to the Senate in 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the fourth order of the day is the second reading of the Federal University of Agriculture, Ura, Kano State, Establishment Bill 2024 SB 624. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read for the first time in this chamber on Wednesday, 23rd October 2024. Mr. President, you may wish to invite most distinguished Senator Rufai Sani Hanga to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
Dismissed Senator Rufai Hanga.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, my esteemed and distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Rufai Hanga, representing Kano Central. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I sincerely thank you for the opportunity to lead the debate on this very important bill. The bill was read the first time in this hallowed chamber on 23rd October 2024. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, this bill is a bold step towards not only addressing the educational needs of the people of Kano State, but will also serve as training ground for development of agriculture in the country. Agriculture, with its allied sectors, is unquestionably the largest livelihood provider, more so in the rural areas, and they can contribute significantly to the GDP of the nation. Demand for agricultural products is rising rapidly with increase in population and per capita income and growing demand from the industrial sectors. The Federal University of Agriculture, Kura, when established, to provide a holistic development of agricultural education, knowledge, skills, and a telescopic vision on the future, and will help contribute to accelerate agricultural growth rate, enhance farmers' income, and generate employment in the sector. Mr. President, my esteemed colleagues and friends, the objective of the university when established are A, to encourage the advancement of learning and to hold out to all persons without distinction of race, creed, sex, or political conviction the opportunity of acquiring tertiary education in agriculture. We develop and offer academic and professional programs leading to awards of diplomas, first degrees, postgraduate, research, and higher degrees, which emphasize planning, adaptive technical maintenance, developmental and productive skills in agriculture, agricultural engineering, and allied professional disciplines with the aim of producing socially matured persons with capacity to improve on those disciplines and develop new ones, and to contribute to the scientific transformation of agriculture in Nigeria. C, act as an agent and catalyst through postgraduate training, research, and innovation for the effective and economic utilization, exploitation, and the conservation of Nigeria's natural agricultural, economic, and rural resources. D, offer to general population as a form of public service the results of training and research in agriculture and allied disciplines, and to foster practical application of those results. E, establish appropriate relationships with other national institutions involved in training, research, and development of agriculture. F, identify the agricultural problems and needs of Nigeria to find solutions to them within the context of overall national development. G, provide and promote sound basic scientific training as a foundation for development of agriculture in Nigeria, taking into account indigenous cultures and the need to enhance national unity. H, encourage and promote scholarship and conduct research in restricted fields of learning and human endeavor. I, relate its activities to the technological, social, cultural, and economic needs of the people of Nigeria, and undertake any other activities appropriate for an agricultural university of a higher standard. The passage of this bill will help not only in transforming and supporting the agricultural policies of the federal government, the agricultural sector in Kano State and other neighboring states like Katsina, Jigawa, Bauchi, and Kaduna, but also Nigeria and West Africa in general. Therefore, distinguished colleagues, it is my prayer and ardent call on you to consider the plight of the people who are desirous of becoming professional farmers, agri-extension workers, and professional agri-industrialists in all the value chains of agriculture and livestock production in Nigeria. Present, my esteemed colleagues and friends, let me also stress the fact that the location of the university, Kura, is instructive, as it is the hub of agriculture in Kano State, and the establishment of the university will clearly register and promote the presence of federal government in the area, and will help to restore and strengthen the citizen sense of belonging to this nation. The President, distinguished colleagues, I urge you to support this bill, be read for the second time, and refer it to the committee for legislative process and action. Thank you very much, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues.
I know that every senator from Kano would like to support this. So Senator Alero, speak on behalf of the other senators from Kano. He's a big leader. He can speak for you guys. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, this is beyond Kano.
Yes.
Because we are talking about Nigeria. The university is meant to serve the interests of Nigeria and even beyond Nigeria. Because as the mover of or the sponsor of the bill said, it's going to serve the whole of West Africa. So for this reason, Mr. President, I rise to second this bill, primarily because agriculture is the mainstay of Nigeria's economy. And it is only investing in agriculture, in research and planning that will make Nigeria to produce enough for itself and even export to other African countries. Right now, we're importing a lot of food, wheat, rice, maize. Mr. President, we have no business importing all these items. Once we concentrate on cultivating the available land we have enough resources in this country. The labor is there. We have very able-bodied men and women that can work in the farms. What is lacking, Mr. President, is support from sub-national and national government. And we should do all we can to ensure that we support the youth, the women, and people that are looking for jobs in order to develop agriculture. Mr. President had just returned from Brazil, where he made a very good outing, where I think over $2.5 billion worth of investment are coming into Nigeria, and virtually all of it is coming into agriculture. So the bill has come at the right time, and I want all my colleagues to support it because it will accelerate agricultural production, and the area where the university is sited is well known to virtually all of us. There are all year round agricultural activity in that area. There is no dry season, no wet season. Farmers are always engaged in agricultural activity because we have irrigation schemes that were established as far back as 1976-77 during the Gowon's era. I think, if I am not mistaken, Governor Audu Bako was the one that established all the dams in Kano. And Governor Rimi came and added some. And it is right now to establish a university in that area to accelerate agricultural production, where we can disseminate information regarding agricultural research through extension services that is seriously lacking in Nigeria. So, Mr. President, I support this bill because of its importance in diversifying our economy, and I urge all my colleagues to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Actually, because of time, we have to receive the Vice President of Chinese Parliament by 2 o'clock in a parliamentary diplomacy. So, but I can have a minute to Kau and then 1 minute to the Deputy Senate President to conclude.
Thank you, Mr. President, my dear respected and distinguished colleagues. I am Suleiman Abrahaman Kawu Sumaila, representing Kano South Senatorial District from Kano. Mr. President, I don't want to say much because my two August, Senator Paisan Nanga and Senator Adamar Leru, said it all. But I have an information to share this parliament of necessity to have this kind of institution in Kura or in Kano state in general. Kura is part of Kano Central Senatorial District where my big brother is representing. Well, I am representing Kano South Senatorial District where the dams which feed Kura and remaining part of irrigation areas are from Kano South Senatorial District. And like what Senator Aleru said, since 1976 and subsequently 1990, when General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida constructed the second largest dam in Kano, Chalawa, there was no additional work up to today for over 30 years. But Mr. President, my dear colleague, because of the necessity and the need for Nigeria to shift from the status quo to become self-sufficient country, Mr. President and Commander-in-Chief Bola Ahmed Tinubu, after I put request on behalf of the people of Kano South Senatorial District, of course, some of the areas where the Senator Rufai Sahananga is representing, he graciously approved our request for rehabilitation and reactivating our Kano irrigation scheme, starting from Arai, Rogo, Chalawa, Goje Dam, Tiga Dam, and Kapunchiri. Mr. President, in his wisdom and love for Nigeria to be self-sufficient in line with his renewed hope agenda, he approves a sum of 95 billion naira for us. For over 50 years, there was nothing around that area which you can say we benefited, more especially the irrigation area and the dam. Now, the process is almost completed. 90% of the process is completed. Soon, the contractors will mobilize to the site and reactivate the dam and the irrigation area. Currently, in Tiga area, we have almost 9 hectares, which is there for almost 50 years. Now there was additional 6,000 hectares from Mr. President Bola Ahmed Asiwaju, and another 3,000 hectares from Karai, Rogo, and that angle up to Kiru, where the Rogo, where the Kura, where my Oga is pleading with this parliament to support this, the establishment of this university, are direct beneficiaries of all these 3 dams. Therefore, I am urging the people of this National Assembly to approve this request, to have this kind of institution in line with Mr. President's renewed agenda. Actually, on behalf of the 16 or almost 19 local government around that area, we appreciate and we thank, and we are looking forward to have a robust agricultural system which will sustain Nigeria, inshallah. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, my colleague, of supporting this kind of very important legislation. Thank you.
Let me thank distinguished Senator Kawu for the information he has given to the Senate on the President's efforts to revive the agricultural potentials of Kano. You mentioned that he has approved about 95 billion for the rehabilitation of the major dam. And then the other 3 smaller dams are also being rehabilitated. I think this information is not known to the public. So this is very good, and I commend President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for what he has done, not just for the people of Kano, because any food that is produced in Kano can be sold anywhere. In the south, we depend on a lot of tomatoes that used to come from the north. It's insurgency that tended to reduce the quantity of yam, rice, tomato, particularly onions in the whole south. Everything used to come from Kano, Kaduna area. So now that Mr. President has put in such a chunk of funds to revive those dams, I can imagine the kind of agricultural renaissance that would take place there. So the university seems very apt. I'm only supporting it. Distinguished Deputy Senate President,
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr.
So
President,
Senator Ningi said, when next you meet the president, don't talk only for Kano. That Bauchi is waiting for the same 95 billion. Yes,
Thank you,
please.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Barrow Jibrin Kano. Mr. President, I wholeheartedly support Senator Sanhanga in respect of this bill.
Yes.
Kano is a state that can produce almost the food needed in this country, if given the support. And thank God we have a president who is willing to do that, and he has started to demonstrate his zeal to make sure that Kano and all other states that are using food for this country are supported. It's in line, with this that I support the establishment of this university. Kano can have more than 3 of this kind of university. It will be okay. I know I brought a bill here to upgrade the federal, or to upgrade Aduba College of Agriculture to University of Agriculture. I think if that is done and if this one is also created, it will go a long way to produce the needed manpower to help in developing our agriculture sector. I said earlier by Senator Alero, because he's just like a Kanuma himself, every northern has a stake in Kano. A lot of his people, a lot of who are resident in Kano, businessmen, successful business people. I'm sure he also has a lot of interest in different sectors of economy in Kano. So he spoke just like a Kano man. This area has been proposed to site, to get this university sited there. It's an area where, agriculture is really practiced. You have, farmers who work around the year, produce food of all kinds, crops of all kinds. So if you give these farmers the opportunity to train in mechanized farming, that will help them, help in the production of food. It will kind of increase the food they produce in that area. So it is something that is good to get these 2 universities that we propose. About World College of Agriculture and this university. The more the merrier. They're even, we need even more than 2, because we practice agriculture in Kano State, and if given the chance, be able to produce the entire food needed by this country. So, Mr. President, I support this bill, and I commend him for bringing forward this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you for making it very short. And my distinguished colleagues, we will end the debate there because of our other commitments for the day. I will put the question. Those in support that this bill be now read a second time, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, I bill for an act to establish the Federal University of Agriculture, Kura, Kano State, and to make comprehensive provision for its due management and administration, and for other related matters, 2024 SB 624, second reading.
Distinguished colleagues, a bill for an act to establish the Federal University of Agriculture, Kura, Kano State, and to make comprehensive provisions for its due management and administration, and for other related matters, 2024. Second reading taken. This bill is now referred to the Committee on Tertiary Institution and Third Fund to revert to the Senate in 4 weeks. Distinguished colleagues, just 2 announcements. Number 1 is that the following people are in charge of the conference committee on the South-South Development Commission bill. Distinguished Senator Tahir Mongonu will be chairman. Distinguished Senator Babangida Hosseini. Distinguished Senator Babangida Hosseini will be member. Distinguished Senator Akobondu will be member. Distinguished Senator Asuko Ekpeyon will be member. Distinguished Senator Cyril Fasuji will be member. Distinguished Senator Issa Jibrin, member. And they have to revert to the Senate under 1 week. Then let me also use this opportunity to quickly commend the Speaker, my dear brother Tajuddin Abbas, the Deputy Speaker, my brother Ben Kalu, and all the members of the House of Representatives for the speedy concurrence of the resolution of the Senate sacking the chairman of the Code of Conduct Tribunal. That concurrence occurred just few, I think an hour or so ago, in line with the Senate resolution. I commend them for the speedy concurrence, and I reiterate the fact that yes, that the chairman of the Code of Conduct Tribunal stands removed from office, and I urge the clerk of the National Assembly to quickly communicate in line with the act to the president to effect the resolutions of the both chambers. The Senate leader, in view of the time, we need to receive our distinguished colleagues from China, led by the vice chairman of the People's Parliament in China by 2 o'clock. You may wish to move a motion that we step down other items to another legislative date. Proceed.
Mr. President, relying on your information and the need for us to go and receive our colleagues from the Chinese Parliament, I stand to move that we stand down other items on the order paper till another legislative day, and further move that the Senate do stand adjourned till Wednesday, the 27th day of November 2024. I so move, Mr. President.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I support the motion ably moved by the Senate leader. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded that we do step down other items on the order paper to another legislative date in order to receive our colleagues from China. Those in support of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Tomorrow, we are going to receive, tomorrow is the day of tribute for late Senate President Joe Wires. And so, in line with our tradition, we will do the needful tomorrow. So I urge all senators to please partake in the event. And thereafter, the body will be taken to Calabar for lying in state at the stadium, and the night of tribute will also take place in Calabar. For those who may not be able to make it to the burial proper on Saturday, I think it's important you attend tomorrow's event in Calabar. Leader of the Senate, adjournment.
I had moved, sir, and the minority there seconded.
Yes. Thank you. So, distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded by the minority leader that this Senate stands adjourned for the 27th day of November 2024 at 11 a.m. prompt.